2025 is here and it's looking to be a gigantic year for movies, and with that I thought it'd be kind of fun if I compiled a list of what I thought were the biggest upcoming movies of 2025 and making a bold prediction right now whether I think these are going to be hits or flops come the time they release. Quick shout out to my online movie friend Sean Chandler, who did a similar video where he was predicting what the box office outcome would look like for a lot of these movies. I was already looking into doing my own version of this kind of video, but the way he put it together on a tier list I thought was the best way to go about it, but I am adding a couple more movies and doing something different. I'm also going to be trying to guess whether these movies are going to be good or complete stinkers using little Rotten Tomato icons. I thought that'd be a fun added twist, and yeah, at the end of the year we could look at my predictions and see how awfully wrong or how brilliantly spot on I was. There'll be a link in the description so you can make your own tier list, and feel free to share it online with me because I'd love to see how much you agree or disagree with me. But alright, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin, starting off with Captain America Brave New World. Now, this is an interesting one because if we look at the numbers of the previous Captain America movies, they've been steadily big money makers, with the first one at 370 million, then the second one in 700, and then hitting the $1 billion mark. But that's kind of easy to do when all the Avengers, Spider-Man, and Black Panther are introduced in your movie. With Captain America Brave New World, although I've been really looking forward to the movie and I am rooting for Sam Wilson's Captain America because I actually think there's something noble and badass about taking up the mantle of Captain America and refusing the soldier serum, I can't ignore all the reports of the multiple reshoots, the constant delays. Not a huge fan of the multiple Hulk villains also being thrown at Sam Wilson like if they're his traditional villains. As much as I want this movie to be good and to be a big surprise this year, I feel like it is going to end up negatively received, and I think a lot of the general audience is not going to be that interested in this, and we might see a similar effect to what happened in the Marvels, but it's not going to make the box office compared to the previous movies. Honestly, guys, I am thinking this is going in the $300 million plus mark. And again, I want to be proven wrong on this one. This isn't about what I would want to happen to these movies. This is me trying to be realistic on what I see, and I feel like this movie is going to get very close to 500 million, but just barely hit that. Moving on to Snow White, I think audiences and even critics have grown really tired of these live-action remakes. There was a time where if this was one of the early versions made, I think it would do decently. But this is also another movie that's facing behind-the-scenes drama. Putting Rachel Zegler aside is what they've done with the dwarves and avoiding casting real little people. There's also reported to be big reshoots done for this movie that got it delayed. So I'm honestly leaning towards this also being negatively received, but even with that, it doesn't matter sometimes the reviews on these movies because they will make buckets. There is something about these live action movies that Disney is fully aware of that they will just bring in audiences. People like to see something they grew up with turn live action, and they also seem to have international appeal. I think this is going to go over the $500 million mark. Moving on to Marvel's The Thunderbolts. Now, I gotta admit, I've been interested in this movie since they announced it. I like the idea of Marvel doing their own The Suicide Squad. Some people weren't very happy with the cast of characters put together, mainly because of their power sets not being that different, but I do like the different personalities that are going to have to come together to do a mission. And every trailer they've released, I feel, has gotten better and better. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say that this movie is going to be positively received. I think people are going to enjoy it, but I am worried about how much money it could make. Part of me feels like this has the potential to make more than Captain America Brave New World, but I feel like this also has that slight issue where there's a lot of characters that were mainly introduced in lower projects like Florence Pugh's Yelena in Black Widow, same as Red Guardian, Taskmaster. You have US Agent, who was introduced in a Disney Plus series. Honestly, like the biggest Marvel star in this movie is Bucky, Captain America's sidekick. I don't know how big of a draw it's going to be, but I'm hoping because of word of mouth and people actually saying this movie's enjoyable based off my prediction, it'll just slightly hit over that $500 million mark. But this is a risky prediction, I'm not gonna lie, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Moving on to Disney's live action Lilo and Stitch. Now, I just got done trashing live action adaptations with Snow White, but when it comes to that boy Stitch, I'm gonna give it a pass. I feel like this is kind of an underdog movie because it was meant to originally go straight to Disney Plus, but with the change in leadership at Disney, they decided we're not doing that, and thank goodness, because that Moana 2 that was supposed to be a Disney Plus show close to $1 billion at the box office. Smart move, Disney. And with Lilo and Stitch, it's a big toss-up because I think this is a property a lot of us have grown up with. The people who have grown up with it are the ones with the money to go out and pay for this. But we have seen so little of the marketing. I don't have a feel whether this will be done well or bad. It's just little snippets of Stitch, and he does look great. They did not ruin Stitch. I will say though, I think this is a hard story to make up. Sometimes with these live action movies, it's cheating because you're already copying a proven good movie. You just have to add some additional elements to warrant the live action adaptation. I feel like they can't mess that up with this one. So I'm gonna say it gets positively received. As far as money goes, again, bouncing between 300, 500 million, man. Are we the generation that grew up with Stitch? And there's tons of merchandise for this guy to this day. Will we be showing up for it? I'm gonna take another risky one and say 500 mil plus. If I'm believing the movie's good, is gonna make that kind of money, man. Moving on to Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, if we actually go back to the box office of the previous Mission Impossible movies, we will see these movies make money. But recently, that has died down a little bit for Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, although a really enjoyable movie, was actually the least performing of the newer Mission Impossible movies. Those are the films that came out after Ghost Protocol. And I don't know exactly what happened because, look, Dead Reckoning was not as excellent as some of the previous Mission Impossible movies, but I still really like that movie. So there's no question in my mind Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning is going to be well received and people are going to like it, but the money is definitely going to be a thing. I'm thinking because they're also marketing this as the final Mission Impossible movie, that always gives it like a 10%, 20% boost because people want to be part of the final movie, right? With the last one making 500 mil, I think it'll match that. But dude, this was a movie I could have sworn if the last film did well, 700, maybe even $1 billion club. But we're going 500 mil on Mission Impossible. Moving on to Karate Kid Legends. This is one where we thankfully have a trailer so we can better analyze whether this will be good or bad. And I said it in my most anticipated of 2025 video before that trailer. I honestly would have said probably not going to be well received and it'll probably not do well at the box office either. But I'm not going to say that after seeing the trailer because that trailer proved to me they're taking it seriously. There looks like they're actually trying to make a decent movie. I like the direction they're headed in. I'm going to go with it's going to be a good movie. But in terms of the box office, let's look at the past films. Looking at the Karate Kid franchise, the one that ended up making the most money is the Jaden Smith reboot, which I don't blame it, man. That's a good movie. It's an enjoyable movie. 350 million. Awesome. But that was also about 15 years ago, man. Where is that hype now for Karate Kid? I gotta think it's still kind of there. We've had Cobra Kai to keep us alive. I think there's actually a lot more Karate Kid fans nowadays. Plus, there are the kids who grew up with that being their Karate Kid movie. And most of the people who saw that growing up like the movie. So you have Jackie Chan returning in here. I think we got good things for this Karate Kid film. So I'm still going with well received, but I'm also thinking it's probably still going to hit that mark. It'd be awesome if it hits 400 million, but I don't know if it'll cross 500 million. Still trying to be realistic here, so I'm going in the 300 mil plus section. Moving on to Pixar's original movie, Elio, that'll be coming out this year. Now, you hear Pixar, and sometimes your mind immediately goes, well, that movie's going to be awesome, it's going to be great, and it'll make a bunch of money. Not always the case. Pixar had to work hard to regain their reputation out there, and we saw films like Elemental struggle at first, but thankfully it was such a good movie. It got legs, it got word of mouth, and it ended up being a pretty successful film. Elio, I think, is more in that camp than it is with like Inside Out 2, Incredibles 2, films that managed to make $1 billion for Pixar. Because it is Pixar, I think it's no doubt it'll probably be a good movie, even if it just turns out to be okay. That's still an enjoyable Pixar movie, but I do think it's up and down on the money it makes, and sometimes these original films, they're so up and down, because if they're just good, it's not going to make a lot. If they're great or even reach excellency, that's where it got that legs, and I don't know, with Elio, there have been some weird behind-the-scene things also, where they've delayed it, moved it around, directors have been taken off the project. I'm not sure. It's also always hard for me to gauge my excitement for a Pixar movie based on a trailer, because I'll tell you, original films for Pixar, their trailers almost never do it for me. Movies like Coco, Up, even Elemental, their trailers didn't really get me like up and down excited for the movie, but when I saw the film, I actually really liked it. You guys are gonna think I'm crazy, but I'm actually gonna put this in the 200 million plus. Because it's an original film, it's just gonna suffer from the beginning. I think it'll get super close to that $300 million mark, but I'm not sure if it'll reach it all the way. But hey, Love to be proven wrong on this one. Moving on to the live action How to Train Your Dragon movie. Now, this one is interesting because even though, like I said, I'm kind of tired out of these live action movies, this is going to be the first live action movie of a 3D animated movie, and also one not owned by Disney, who has been monopolizing that market. Universal is stepping in, and maybe they know the right way to go about it. I think there's also something good about having the original director of these movies be the one to helm it. He's also promised that there are going to be some differences from the animated film because you're adapting an already proven great movie. It's going to be hard for you to mess it up, and it's the first one out of the gate for Universal. I think people are going to go easy on it, and it will be well received. Let me see what the previous live action How to Train Your Dragon movies did. Okay, wow. So none of them have ever hit that 700 million plus or even got close to $1 billion. You think they would have with all the people talking about it. But this is also live action. And sometimes to the general audience or most people, live action is the true form of movie making, not animated films. We definitely saw the case with that with Transformers. For some reason, people don't show up when it's an animated version of that property. Now we're seeing the reverse here. Could the movie actually make more than the animated films because it's live action now? I'm not gonna lie, part of me wants to say yeah. I'm thinking 750 plus. The hype for this I've also seen just feels so big. Okay, bringing us here to Ballerina, a spin-off movie within the John Wick universe. Okay, this is probably going to be where some of my conflicting thoughts come in because I don't know how I feel about this movie. This is also one that suffered from some reshoots. They got the actual director of the John Wick films to come in and spice up the action scenes. I don't know if that really tells us whether the story was interesting or not, but maybe that it just needed a little bit more action or to feel more like the John Wick films. They weren't afraid to show off Keanu Reeves as being part of the movie. To me, that kind of smells like desperation. Other people are like, Chris, that's just smart marketing. Lets them know it's in the John Wick world. I'm like, you literally have John Wick as part of the title now. I love Ana de Armas as much as the next person, but something is telling me this movie's not going to be that great. And the highest grossing John Wick movie has hit the $400 million mark. And this is a spin-off, not really with John Wick. You would think I'd go 200 plus. Guys, I'm gonna be a hater. And I'm thinking under 200 mil. I don't know if it gets over $200 million. The only way I see it go over in that is if it's actually well received, people like the movie, then yeah, it'll probably hit over 200 mil. But I'm thinking under. Don't hate me. Don't hate me, Anna fans. Moving on to Megan. Oh, this is where my biases come in, right? Because you guys know, big Megan fan. And I don't know what happened, but Megan is kind of a superstar in the killer doll community because you know her film alone has made more money than any solo Chucky movie. Yeah, that first Megan film, $181 million worldwide. Chucky's highest grossing movie, Bride of Chucky, at only $50 million worldwide. It's hard to tell right now without a trailer, but hearing the plot that Megan is going to be turned into a good guy and is going to go after another robotic evil doll sounds crazy, but also kind of fun, and rules dictate sequels usually end up making more than their predecessor. I'm going to say well received, and I'm going to go over 200 million. I'm not thinking this movie is going to be a gigantic shift from the previous movie, but if the last one was 181, I think this one will end up making a little bit more if it's good. Moving on to Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later. Dude, the hype for this has been interesting. When the trailer for that got released, I thought to myself, oh, that looks actually pretty good. Looks like they got an intriguing story. I was kind of surprised to see the giant buzz behind it and how it became one of the most viewed horror trailers of all time. That should let you know people have been clamoring for this movie. With Danny Boyle also coming back to be the director of this, I'm thinking he cooked. So I'm obviously saying it's going to be a well-received, enjoyed movie. But, you know, just being the most viewed horror trailer of all time doesn't automatically mean, oh, it guarantees $1 billion club or even 750 million. Looks like the last film made 82 million worldwide. Granted, that was 2003. Since then, there's been a lot more fans of this. I think it's enough to potentially double it, but I don't know about, you know, going all out crazy in terms of money. Next up here, we have the Michael Jackson biopic titled Michael. Okay. This is hard, man, because it could honestly go either way. We know his family is the ones behind the biopic. So because of that, a lot of things I think are going to end up being sugar-coated, but maybe not. Maybe they face them head on. There's been a lot of interesting up and downs in Michael's life. I think it's also a huge bonus that they actually get to use the full catalog of Michael Jackson songs in this film, and that's going to sway you one way. Like, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan, love his music, and seeing it play in a movie, probably going to lead me towards liking the film. I'm leaning towards overall being well received, and I don't even think I need to make an argument for why I believe this is our first spot for Billion Dollar Club. Michael Jackson was one of the biggest celebrities of the world. When this movie comes out, it is going to be an event. You're going to see grandmas, grandpas, coworkers, everybody talk about this thing. Moving on to what could possibly be another billion-dollar contender, Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, oh man, I'm scared about this movie, man. It came so quickly into production, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. If you were following along my channel when we were talking about everything that they were doing for this movie, is they had a script written by David Koepp, who wrote the first two Jurassic Park movies with Steven Spielberg, and they loved his script so much, they fast-tracked this movie to the point that when they went for directors and they wanted to add stuff to the movie, they went, never mind, we're not going with you. And that's what happened to director David Leitch, who was first offered the directing job of this movie. He wanted to add his own stuff, and they're like, nah, we're happy with what we got. We just need you to make it. Could they be that confident with the movie? And I like Scarlett Johansson. Cast looks good. Even the first look photos look pretty nice. The plot is going to revolve around scientists going to find 3 of the largest land, sea, and air dinosaurs because they hold a cure, but they end up encountering a family, get lost on an island. Classic Jurassic Park type story. I feel like we do need that. So part of me feels like, yeah, I think they're actually going to cook with this one. I think it's actually going to be a good movie, but I think we do have to take into account the huge disappointment that Jurassic World Dominion was. Audiences do not forget. They very much remember when you deliver something they were so excited for and it ended up poo-pooing on their dreams. I think that's going to hurt its billion-dollar chances. I know this is a billion-dollar franchise. I'm going a bold choice and going 750 million plus. I think it's going to inch extremely close to that billion-dollar mark, but there are some people that are going to be hurt by Dominion, and it's still been so soon for that movie. It's fresh in their minds. We'll see. We'll see. Moving on now, James Gunn's Superman. I've been contemplating back and forth on this movie, man. I have no idea what to do with this film. In my heart of hearts, I'm going to say it's going to be well received. Look, James Gunn just has already created so many good projects, from the Guardian franchise to the Suicide Squad movie, even Creature Commandos I'm enjoying. Like, there isn't a bad movie in James Gunn's rap for me to go, yep, that's proof right there, it's going to suck. It would be awful if Superman is his first bad movie. So I think it's going to be liked. I think it's going to be enjoyed. But the money, man, that's something here, because there has not been a Superman movie that's made $1 billion. Superman sometimes at the box office just kind of disappoints in terms of other superhero properties. But when that trailer came out, I feel like the world's mind kind of changed, and they're just ready for a big, happy Superman. I'm not going $1 billion club, as much as awesome as that would be, but I'm thinking it's going to make a splash, and I'm thinking people are going to enjoy it. I'm going 750 million plus, dude, and it's going to be liked. Come on. Come on, let's let it happen. Start DC with the bang. Moving on to Marvel's The Fantastic Four. They are taking some bold, different steps with this movie, setting it outside the MCU, going with this retro-futuristic world. And it's the MCU movie I'm most looking forward to this year. I'm thinking they're going to nail it down. They would not take these such bold, drastic change steps if they didn't have a great story. So I am going to say well-received again. Gonna be liked. Money-wise, though, baby, this is hard to say. This is going to be a hard one to say. I think there is somewhat of a nostalgic or already brand attachment with this, since we've had 2 other Fantastic Four franchises. But if the MCU was still making their hit after hit movie like they were in the past, easy $1 billion. But the Marvel hype has died down a bit to where we have to scale back 20% of that excitement. I'm thinking also 750 mil. It's going to make that splash. I think it could end up making a good chunk more than Superman, surprising as that sounds, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. All right, moving on to The Conjuring 4, currently titled Conjuring: The Last Rites. This is also being marketed as the last Conjuring movie. I wish they would bring back James Wan, end the franchise with him. But no, they're bringing back the director from La Llorona and Conjuring 3, Michael Chavez, who I don't hate, but he's no James Wan. I'm sorry. That last film they made wasn't awful, but man, it was nothing memorable. It just kind of came and went, and I can't even tell you any scene from that movie. I'm hoping this time around they have a stronger script or a really good story to end things off in, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's going to be well received. I think without James Wan there and bringing back Michael Chavez, it's just going to be a dud. Not awful or terrible, but just eh. Also, every main Conjuring movie has been making less and less money with each entry. I don't know if that's going to change here, so I'm honestly gonna go the 200 mil plus route. Moving on to Tron Ares, another tough one, man, because this is now gonna be our second attempt to revive the Tron franchise, and that last movie was great, but barely anyone showed up for it. Are the people who grew up with that movie now going to make a big splash for this one? I'm not sure. And you got Jared Leto, Mr. Morbius coming in as one of the main characters. The idea of this story is also taking the Tron universe out of Tron and into the real world. That could be interesting, but it seems a lot less visually exciting than the last film was, where that was all set in the Tron world. Maybe I want to give it bonus points because of that first look photo with a man in red lights. That could make it a $1 billion movie, just that alone. But I'm gonna take a wild card approach and say it's actually going to be liked. I feel like maybe Disney knows, and part of me is maybe just thinking that because I don't want them to fail for a third attempt with the Tron franchise. In terms of money, though, it's still, I think, going to be slow going. I'm going 300 mil plus on that. All right, Mortal Kombat 2. I'm interested in this movie. I didn't think the first one they made was all that bad. I know some people hate it. I had fun with it. I even enjoyed some of the changing lore. I didn't mind Cole Young, and I thought the bloody fights were cool, and I think they're only going to up the ante in the next movie. But even with then, I can like a bad movie and still be aware it's a bad movie. Part of me is guessing this is still not gonna be that well received. Fans of the franchise are gonna love it nevertheless. And I think I myself am gonna end up liking it. But when we get to box office predictions, this is where it gets difficult, because the first movie released when they were doing that day and date thing with HBO Max, and it only made 83 million. But this was also the movie that was most watched on HBO Max the year that came out, letting you know there is a big audience for it. It was just a weird time in the world where people were still afraid to go out and to see a movie in theaters. I feel like it could double that. I feel like we could go 200 mil plus on this movie, and it could actually do decently. Moving on to Zootopia 2. I really love that first Zootopia movie, and I've actually been dying to jump back into that world. And the plot they have this time around, where we're going to learn the history of reptiles and why they're banned from Zootopia, I think is an interesting premise. So kind of with that alone, I feel like Disney's going to provide a good movie. And this one I feel also has that kind of Moana 2 effect, where there was enough people who grew up with the first movie that came out kind of a while back, that audience is still there and have been waiting for a sequel. I'm gonna go $1 billion club on this one. I think this one will hit a billion. Moving on to the Wicked sequel titled Wicked for Good. I did not think I was gonna enjoy the first Wicked movie as much as I ended up liking. It made me interested to see the second movie, but the little things I've been hearing about what goes down in this second film and some of the bigger interconnected stuff from the Wizard of Oz universe, it's got me wanting to see it. Plus, the first film was good, and that had to do all the setting up, establishing, getting you ready for that. The second movie is all going to be about payoff. And so I think no doubt it's probably going to end up being a good movie. And I think $1 Billion Club. Yeah, I'm kind of taking a big leap from the way the first movie opened, 680 million, but I just felt that giant buzz, and I think there's enough people who didn't maybe go see that first movie, but they felt all the buzz. They saw everybody talking about it. They have a year now to catch up, watch that first movie, and then they're not going to want to be left out when the buzz hits again for this second film. I think there's enough in there for that to be a $1 billion movie. Hey, I could definitely be wrong on this one. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And man, this is going to be a tough one. Because look, the Five Nights at Freddy movie fans are passionate and excited for this movie. And I think most of them ended up walking away loving the film because they were familiar with the brand, done all the research and homework and videos. But those unfamiliar with it really did not like the movie and were disappointed. So this is a hard one to pick whether it be liked or hated, because I think if you're a fan of FNAF, you're gonna like this movie either way. Not to say there isn't fans who were disappointed with the new movie, but I think for the most part, most people will just be happy with this. And they're promising to make it scarier and that they're listening to the fan feedback. I'm thinking this one will be better, but my main fear is we have to dive now more into some deeper lore in the FNAF world. And that's where things get muddled and just so messy. Y'all are gonna hate me for this, but I do think it's not going to change, and a lot of people are going to dislike it. But in terms of the money, I still don't know if they're going to do the thing where you can watch the movie at home the same day it releases in theaters. It's so funny that Universal are like the only people who still do that. If that does happen, I think it will take a hit where people will actually be like, yeah, I'll check it out, but I'd rather just see it at home, hit 200. If they don't do that and they just release it in theaters, I think it does just slide a little bit over 300 mil. All right, moving on to the Minecraft movie. I feel like this is the one movie out of the entire list where if we put together all of our tier lists, so many variations on where people are putting the Minecraft movie in terms of it'll be good, it'll be bad, it'll make a ton of money, it's gonna completely flop. And so it'll be interesting to see that. But for me personally, as much as the hate that this movie has been getting from the trailers, I just have so much faith in director Jared Hess. I love Nacho Libre and Napoleon Dynamite that much. Maybe because I don't have the giant attachment to Minecraft, I'm not that upset with some of the major changes. It'll actually end up being enjoyed. I think people are going to turn around and like this thing. But now getting on to the money part, dude, Minecraft is a worldwide gigantic brand. But I do think some of that hate from the first trailer is going to make a bit of a difference. I'm going 750 mil, but I'm so close to leaning on it on the $1 billion club. We'll see though. This could be a total disastrous flop, but I think Minecraft as a brand is just so huge. Moving on to Avatar, Fire and Ash. I became an Avatar stan after that last movie. I think James Cameron knows what he's doing. I like the direction of them meeting a fire tribe that they're gonna have to fight and go up against after they just learned the way of water. And we just saw with Avatar 2, even though there was an over 9-year gap in between sequels, it still made its money. I think it's gonna be good, and it's an obvious $1 billion club. Final Destination, Bloodlines. Going off whether it's gonna be good or bad with the very limited information we've gotten about this movie, I'm leaning towards good, because of them saying that they're going to be mixing up the formula, trying to do something fresh. And I think that is always what a horror franchise should be doing. Not just repeating the formula till exhaustion, but experimenting with it, having fun with it, and keeping it fun for the fans. So I think it is going to be enjoyed and liked. But without that first trailer, it is hard to tell. When that first trailer hits, I could look at it and go, oh, never mind. This is going to be awful. Doesn't matter if they change the formula. In terms of money, though, I think fans have been clamoring for a new one. And every Final Destination film makes more and more at the box office, not gigantically more. And following that trajectory, I feel like we could guesstimate it probably goes a little over 200 mil. Now You See Me 3. Okay. People love the Now You See Me franchise. I don't know why, but every other month on social media, I will see people post that clip where they're tossing the card around like it's the greatest scene in cinematic history. Maybe I'm being a hater, but I don't get why people treat that scene like if they're literally doing that with the card. I'm like, that's CGI. You think they're actually tossing the card around? It's a cool concept, but is it that cool when you know it's all in effect? Don't get me wrong. I love the idea behind the Now You See Me movies, okay? These magicians that are also bank robbers. Dude, yes, there should be 10 of these movies. But the thing that kind of irks me about this franchise is they go past the believable magic route to where they are just doing unbelievable things that cannot be explained. And so with that, almost anything can happen and they could just brush it off as it was a trick. The cast is great though. I'm sounding like a huge hater, but these movies make money, dude. But also, not a single Now You See Me movie has been loved by critics and just barely by audiences. I'm thinking the same thing's happening here. It'll be a guilty pleasure fun movie for people who like this, but I think overall it's not going to be that awesome. But because it's been so long since the last one and there's been growing fans of people who like that, I think it'll hit its target of what it's done previously, 300 mil. I know every day you find out I'm a hater of a different franchise. How does it feel, Now You See Me lovers? The Black Phone 2. Scott Derrickson is returning to direct this movie again. We have no idea where this sequel is headed, but they promised they came up with such a good idea that it's worth attempting another movie. For that reason alone, and me liking Scott Derrickson as a director, I am gonna say it's probably gonna be good. It has to be if he's willing to come back. This is a man who dropped out of a Marvel movie because he didn't like the direction it was headed in. So although you're always supposed to hype up your movie, I think we could take him seriously when he says he thought of a good idea. The first film also made 150, going with the idea that a sequel ends up making more if it's good. I think it will, but it'll be more like 180, 190. So I think right under the 200 mil mark. Moving on now to Disney's Freaky Friday. This could honestly be a sleeper hit for the year 2025 because of the long gap since the first movie. I mean, just asking yourself, if you're around my age, you probably have seen this movie like 10 times on TV. And I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy the first movie, but I really don't know how you could replicate that or make something so worthy after all these years. I think it's not going to be great, but I think the nostalgia and the fans who like that first movie are going to show up enough where it'll make over 200 million. But dude, again, this could be a sleeper one. Sometimes you don't know with nostalgia or what people love. This could easily end up hitting 300 mil. I don't think any more than 500 though. Moving on here, we have the Smurfs. I don't know who owns the rights to this, but they do not want to give up on this. This time with Rihanna, pretty big star. Well, that might help things out, but I just feel like this is one that they keep trying and it's not panning out. Not to be a Smurf hater, I actually watched some of the cartoons as a kid on Boomerang, but I just feel kind of like the time has maybe passed on Smurfs. I'm gonna say it's probably not going to be great. And again, looking at the box office history, yeah, that 2011 New York Smurf movie made over 500 mil, but the most recent one in 2017 couldn't even get past 200 mil. I don't know, man. I'm thinking this one's also going to be an under 200 mil movie. But who knows? Maybe there's been a lot of Smurf fans that have been emerging since 2017. Bringing us to Predator Badlands. This is another intriguing one because we just have very limited information to go off of. Previously, we had heard that it was going to be about a predator versus twin sisters who are entering the world. With that plot alone, I would have told you, yeah, this movie's probably going to be bad. But they've added on since then, and director Dan Trachtenberg has confirmed this movie is going to be from the POV of the Predator, having him be the main character. I think that's a refreshing, great idea. Plus, you have the director of Prey. I liked what he did there in that movie, so I think he's going to deliver good here. So I'm going to hope this movie is good based off those details. But when it comes to money, this is also a tricky one. Some people might want to compare it to like Alien Romulus. But believe it or not, the Alien franchise tends to make way more money than the Predator franchise does. The highest grossing solo Predator movie was The Predator from 2018 that was at 159 million, and that's actually way less than the top 3 Alien movies in theaters. For some reason, people prefer to go see an Alien than to see a Predator. You know what? That actually makes sense. But who knows? Maybe the refound love of Alien Romulus doing something cool. Some people are going to be like, maybe the Predator will do something cool. So I'm actually going to go 200 mil plus, which will be a nice, cozy start, but it'd be awesome if it made like Alien Romulus money. And again, guys, that's kind of where my predictions lie for 2025 in some of the big movies. I'd love to hear from you guys what you agree, disagree with me on. It's going to be so funny rewatching this at the end of the year, whether I was right or wrong. If I get more wrong than right, I need you guys in the comments to let me know what you think my punishment should be for that video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.